Hello, friends. Welcome back to Sustainable Work. I have wonderful Leslye Rollins Smith with me today. Hi.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy you're here. So, Dr. Leslye Rollins Smith is an accomplished industrial organizational psychologist, founder of the Org Psych Consultants, LLC, a culture and organizational effectiveness consulting group, and adjunct professor of IO psychology for Purdue University Global. Driven by a purpose for investigation and discovery, Leslye takes pride in providing organizations and individuals alike the best experience possible. As an IO psychologist, her work includes partnering with organizations to create authentic and inclusive working environments for employees and creating sustainable talent management solutions. In addition to her primary job functions as an IO psychologist and talent management expert, Dr. Rollins Smith has been recognized by marketing and healthcare leaders for her extraordinary commitment to the consumer experience. Leslye received her certification in diversity and inclusion from Cornell University and doctorate in industrial organizational psychology from University of Phoenix. Leslye enjoys cooking, running or cycling for fundraising events, and spending time with her husband, super cool dad, and 3 dogs who rescued her. That is so fun.
Yeah, absolutely. They rescued me.
Well, like I said, I'm so happy to have you here. And like myself, Leslye is located in Dallas, so I'm just happy to connect with
Yeah.
another Texan around. Awesome. So why don't you tell us a little bit about you, your work, who are you, what you do? Want to know more?
Yeah. Well, Maria, first, thank you for that wonderful introduction. And as I've said all the time, my dogs actually rescued me. They and I think for my work, it's a lot about rescue, right? Helping organizations find that right talent, grow that right talent, and also pursue their bottom line, but not making it strictly about the bottom line. What I really love is the chance to work with all different types of organizations, small, medium, large organizations, and seeing the things that connect us as well as the things that differentiate. When I'm not doing that, and now that I'm done with all of my school work, really, but not done with my research, I do enjoy being able to get outside, being able to support other nonprofit organizations through fundraising events. And so I really like to do those ones that also get my blood moving. So if it's going to be running, it's going to be cycling, I'm all about that.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, and the weather right now, like for us, is so nice.
Perfect.
Dallas, so beautiful. Yes, so getting outside is definitely can be a priority.
Right.
So, what I was wondering if you can tell us, how did you get here? Like, how did you develop your interest? How did you get to IO psychology? Why is that your passion?
Yeah. That's, I think about that, and it found me really. And early in my career, my work was involved in the financial world, commercial and consumer banking. And then what I found as I was a bit more introspective is that I liked working with people, and I found that I enjoyed mentoring individuals. It probably wasn't until almost 15 years or so ago that I realized that there was a whole world that was similar to me, and it was that world of IO psychology. And also around that time, I was always thinking about how are we, and at that time I think I was working with HP, how are we integrating these multiple generations that we have, because we've got an older generation. And Maria, I want to make sure everybody understands when I talk about an older generation, I'm not talking about people over 65. I'm really talking about that protected class. So anyone over 40, we've got a mature, aging, older, you pick that adjective. that wants to stay in the workforce. And at the same time, we're hoping to bring in early career individuals who are fresh out of college, maybe even fresh out of high school. And how do you get those groups to work together and not feel that one needs to replace the other? And it sparked my interest to see, well, what is it that people who are over 40 or approaching 40 and approaching the next stage of their life, what's keeping them in the workforce? Why aren't they following that traditional path of retiring at 65 and then just sitting on the couch? Why are they doing things like starting their own business or becoming mentors within their corporation or becoming consultants? Like what's the intrigue behind it? And so that really became the impetus for me to do my research.
Okay, that's fun and so inspiring. So, given your area of expertise and your research and everything else, how do you define sustainable work?
Wow. How do I define it? It's so big. And I think I look at it almost from an environment and nature perspective, right? So if we can create something that survives in times of stress and in times of bounty and gives back either through knowledge or ability or skills, then we've created something that's sustainable. So for me, creating a sustainable workforce has to include not just a nod, but a very conscious effort towards supporting the older workforce, as well as bringing up that newer generation of individuals entering into the workforce.
That's beautiful. You know, what it makes me think about is, and I'm so glad you mentioned the environment.
Yes.
Because that's where the whole idea for sustainable work came from for me.
Yeah.
Of my passion of sustainable living. And I know that sustainability to me is also, it's just a way of living, right? It's a way of setting up our lives, and it completely relates to work. So the other thing that I'm like gathering from what you're saying is like sustainability is about everyone,
Right.
How do we include everyone, and how do we tap into the potential of everyone to like bring up and bring out the best
Yes,
they can serve with?
absolutely. It's, it can happen, in conversations, one-on-one conversations with leaders. Like, what is it that you enjoy doing? What do you like to do? That may differ from what their jobs really are. And if you had the ability to share some of your talent, how would you do that? And that's something that I noticed from my research and my conversations with people is I just want to be able, I know I have value. I want to be able to share that with other individuals. It may be somebody that's early career. It could be somebody that's returning to the workforce and has been away from it. How do we create this re-onboarding event that allows me to share the talent and the knowledge and show the value that I bring to the work and makes it meaningful to me. And once I heard that, I was like, yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. I think about my parents, who one has passed away, the other one is older, and both of them immediately after retiring, and in some cases only over the weekend did they retire, they went back to work. And I was like, why are you doing this? You spent all of this time working. You took care of all of us, my siblings. Why are you going back to work? Though, because I have something to say, I have something to give, I have something to do. I'm not done yet. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. And I feel that I'm the same way. I'm like, oh, I'm not done. There's a second, a third act. And for my mom, it was a third act. And for my dad, it was a second act, probably. And they worked right up into their 80s. And then they were like, okay, now we're ready to retire. But that still meant traveling and seeing the world and learning about culture. So there was still learning to do. It wasn't very complacent at all.
Yeah. So okay, let's talk about your research. So what did you find in your research and in your work? Or what is that the older population and that you're referring to over 40 years old, what motivates them, right? And what is their what motivates
Yeah.
them?
Yeah. So when I looked at this, I was very much focused because I was working in the IT sector, and I was very much focused on the IT group. Some of the impetus certainly came from my parents staying in the workforce longer, but it also came from seeing colleagues of mine who were older than me during this event in 2012 taking this early retirement because their years of service and their age added up to 65, taking that early retirement and immediately going into another industry or into another company. Maybe it was a boutique firm, maybe it was out on their own, maybe it was completely into something like real estate that had nothing to do with what we were doing in IT. And I thought, why are they doing this? What is going on? I need to figure this out. So when I focused on that group, what my research showed me, the motivation was very intrinsic. It was about bringing more value to their lives, doing something that meant something to them, that was very fulfilling, and being able to share their knowledge with the next group of people. Certainly there were individuals within that sample that I interviewed that had a very extrinsic motivator. It was money. They still had children in college or in high school. They still had a mortgage left to pay. And financially, they weren't set to take either early retirement or actually retire. Maybe they had children later in life. So for them, it was very, very extrinsic. They also said, there was a certain point that I knew I needed to be at before I took a retirement. So they weren't there yet. They wanted to be at a senior director or a VP level or an SVP level. And they were so close and they wanted to do some years there before they retired. But more often than not, the individuals that I interviewed, it really came down to that intrinsic need to stay engaged, to be fulfilled, and to share their knowledge. And I just thought that was beautiful because going into it with my bias, though I tried to set it aside, I really thought it was going to be money related. I really thought we financially just weren't ready. And so I can't. But I was so pleasantly surprised to see that it was more intrinsic. On the other side of my research, I also wanted to know, well, if there are a lot of individuals that want to stay in the workforce, how do we create that type of workforce that says, we want you here? And that's that sustainable aspect. How do we tell the people who are over 40, we want you to be part of this community. It's part of our culture. And at the same time, we want to bring in new talent and have you work together. And that's where I found that more often than not, the retention and the recruitment programs weren't really geared to that. And so I'm hoping with more conversations like this, that we can turn that tide and get our HR leaders and our hiring managers to think in that more holistic, sustainable method.
Yeah, so that brings me to my next question. So, why is that, right? That is what you discovered, that even though we have this older workforce that really wants to contribute and has, knowledge and skills and expertise to contribute, what are the challenges?
I think in talking, and so for that section of it, I talked with HR leaders across Fortune 500 companies that represented VPs and SVPs and senior directors, and many of the times it boiled down to cost. This thinking, maybe not always with strong data supporting it for every situation, but the thinking that it just costs too much to have that older worker. When if you're thinking of it as full-time work, yes, it could be more expensive. But if you're actually being a bit more creative and bringing them on as consultants or seeing them as coaches and mentors at that critical point where we really need that knowledge transfer, then it doesn't need to be that expensive. There even could be some volunteer effort that gets the older workers back in that workforce, but on their own terms and without the need to have to pay them. So there are creative solutions that can be worked. We just have to spend a little more time thinking about it.
So, okay, that makes sense. So what exactly, why is it costly? What exactly is costly?
When you're thinking about it, initially you're thinking the cost is related to healthcare,
Right.
additional healthcare, as people enter in those stages, and may need more medical treatments or for conditions that really are specific to older population. But if you're looking at individuals between 40 and 65, that need for additional healthcare isn't greater. You're not seeing that cost really going up at that point. It's no different than your population 20-year-olds to 40-year-olds. It's in that childbearing age where you have the costs associated with that. The cost of salaries. Part of what I looked at was the thinking around human capital theory. And as the worker spends more time in an organization, the cost goes up from a salary perspective because you're expecting that they're moving up and promoting and gaining more responsibility and deeper titles. But again, if you're looking at individuals and thinking about other ways to utilize their talent, then it doesn't necessarily mean that you're giving them this title, the responsibility, the pay grades that's associated with the senior VPs and the VP levels.
Yeah, and it also, makes me think about like what are we paying for, right? That it's not
Right.
really you may not be paying a person who works for you for their tenure. You may or may not, right? But ultimately, maybe things you're paying for is the skill that they're bringing to the organizational
Right.
knowledge.
Right. And if those individuals are financially set, they may not need that salary that you're thinking they're at going to command. They may be willing to come back in and do at a different level at a lower salary to stay connected. And also so that they don't have that additional stress, right, of all of the deadlines and all that goes with being at those senior level positions. They may be ready to step down into something that may be considered a junior level without that additional stress. So, but it comes down to asking. We have to find out.
Yes, like not making assumptions, but asking like, what are you after? What do you want to contribute?
Right.
What do you want to bring in? And let's have a conversation about that.
Right.
So, the one thing that I'm hearing from you is the impediment for older workforce is the like bias or the mindset against older workforce.
Absolutely. We need to go ahead.
And this kind of like also way of relating to an employee solely from the like cost benefit perspective. Like
right.
this is how much you cost me, I think, and this is how much you bring to me, I think.
Right.
Without maybe taking into consideration more like less tangible things, not only about the knowledge and wisdom and expertise that older people may be bringing into your company, but also maybe even the reevaluating like what makes it sustainable, right? And what does sustainability mean? And does looking at your employees from the cost benefit perspective, is it aligned with the values of your business, and also the long term, does it create positive results for you, for the organization, and for your community?
Yeah, it's really, when you think about it, it's really about, are you thinking about your employee as a human being, or are you thinking about your employee as a resource that is not animate? So if you're thinking of them as a human being, then you're asking those questions of the individual and your teams through surveys, through something similar to like Gallup or Gartner, and you're incorporating what you're hearing back from them into the overarching strategy and ultimately into the culture of your organization. If you're thinking about them as a resource, then yes, they're on your balance sheet and you're thinking of how they're an asset, or now they're turning into a liability, which again can permeate the culture and make people feel like I'm not valued here. I no longer bring a benefit. So it's time for me to go. And that shouldn't be the way that we're looking at it. And that, again, doesn't make for a sustainable workforce.
Yeah, and what comes to mind for me, uh, since you said that, which also like the theme that's emerging from these interviews is that ultimately your success as an organization depends on how you treat your employee.
Oh, yeah.
And so with taking all of that into consideration, if you treat your employee as just like a resource that you're going to use up at some point and then throw away, and that's the culture you're creating in your company, first of all, you're probably not going to attract the highest performers.
No, that's going to get around very quickly.
Like, yeah, that's not the place I want to work at.
No, thank you.
Not going to attract them, not going to retain them. And
right.
So like the level, even the people that you do have in your company, the level like effectiveness, productivity, creativity that you're getting out of them, they're not at their best selves.
No, they're not. That's not how you create a high performing team if you're just thinking of them as resources. You create that high performing team by first and foremost, in my mind, seeing these individuals as human beings with different personalities and emotions, as well as gifts that they bring, right? Your employee coming and working in your organization every day and showing up and being their best is a gift to you. Why would you want to throw that away?
Yes, absolutely. And now it makes so much sense to me why it's like the aging workforce and taking them into account and including them into the strategy is so important, because that really sends the message, right? That everyone's important. And everyone has value and everyone has a contribution. And from what you said, like, they want to contribute.
That's it. They want to contribute. And we have to also remember every person over 40 was at one time somebody at under 20, right? Under 40, right? So those individuals that are in the organization now that are in their 20s and 30s, if they're seeing how individuals over 40 are being treated, they're like, oh my goodness, I could be next. And you could be losing some really strong talent because you're not taking care of the talent on the other end of that spectrum.
Yes. Awesome. That makes so much sense to me. Okay, so now that we established the need for this, so what can HR leaders, hiring managers, and just leader in general do, right, to integrate the older workforce?
I think first and foremost, survey their teams, right? You need the data, and we really are striving to be a data-driven world. You see that and hear that more and more with organizations, that they're making their decisions based on the data. The data is what drives them. So gather that data through the conversations at the supervisor, hiring manager level. Do it in those one-on-one conversations. Do it through pulse points or management by walking around at the HR and C-suite level. Make it part of your strategy, make it part of your retention as well as recruitment strategy, to understand that there's a need out there, that people want to work. And I know it seems obvious right now as we're going into the tail end of the pandemic. I have my fingers crossed on that, right? That people want to work and the economy's opening. But it was the same way February of 2020, February of 2019, people still want to work. They want to take care of themselves and their family. So build it into that strategy of recruitment and retention, and don't automatically dismiss a experienced worker as someone that's either going to be costly, someone that's going to get bored quickly, someone that's going to have to be out because of, you know, who knows what reasons. That can happen with anybody, regardless of the age bracket we're talking about. I would say also, overall, let's bring it to the attention of that C-suite that we need to have this strategy in place. If we want to be XYZ in the marketplace, we need to retain and recruit talent that spans. And we need to make this a practice that we're constantly doing. So it goes back to my definition, right, of sustainable. It's something that will survive in stress. So in stressful situations, we don't abandon it. And it survives in bounty, and then it gives back. And that's where their older workers are giving back to that next generation of people coming in and creating a very warm, comfortable culture of accountability and need and value.
Yeah, and like tapping into that tacit knowledge, right? That the workers bring with their experience and in different situations that younger workers may have not had yet.
Right.
And like what I'm gathering from what you're saying, it's just getting over your bias again, that there's another ism, our age is
another ism. Yeah.
First, that's not really supported, that for some reason like older workers are not bringing value or like dismissed, which is not necessarily supported by any evidence.
Right.
So just getting over that bias once again. And
yes, absolutely.
Yes.
And it's not just the US, right? In my research, I could see it was happening. They're ahead of us in Italy, in other parts of Europe, in the APAC region. They're ahead of us in that, thinking that, wait, we've got to do something a little different. Our workforce is aging. Our younger workforce may not go into these traditional roles. They may do more entrepreneurial gig type of work. How do we support that? How do we create something that's going to work for us for the next 20, 30, 40 years? And when you make that statement, as we've said, you're talking about how do you sustain?
Yes, and I love that you're bringing up the example of like there are other countries who already do that, who have really strong economies. It's working for them. Right. And I just want to say, I grew up in Russia, and Russia, in terms of what we're just discussing, are so far behind us that conversations like this aren't even happening. And I hope that one day, I hope that one day the mindset can be changed there too, because I remember, I went back to school, I was 25. I got into graduate school, I was like 29. I think I was 30. No, I was 30. Yes, I think I was 30, 29, something like that. Maybe 29. Yeah. Well, around that time. And I remember my friends from Russia telling me like, what? You're in school? Yeah. You're only 30? And I love it that, like I went for my undergrad, I went to UCLA, and I made a friend there. The guy from, like, he lived at that time in Florida. He flew in to finish his undergraduate degree. He was in his late 60s. He needed to finish 1 year, and we were in like the same classes together. And it was like, it's awesome. I'm like, yes.
Right. Yes. Because he could bring a lot of that real world experience and tie it in with what you're learning in class and generate that excitement. Right? Yes. That keeps you coming back.
Totally, yes. Yeah. I loved having him around.
Absolutely.
Okay, so how about, now coming back to the workers themselves, to the mature workers, as you call them, what recommendations do you have for them who either want to continue working or perhaps they didn't work for some times and want to get back into working? What do you do?
I'd say for the ones who want to continue working, the simple answer is just do it, right? Continue working. But if you're currently working in a corporate situation, don't just rely on the once a year employee survey or the once a month, maybe one-on-ones. Be very proactive and tell what your plan is, what you want to do, and help craft that. I think when I look at career planning and career development, 80% of that is the individual. The other 20% is the organization and your leadership putting in place for you what you need to be successful. But they don't know what you need to be successful without knowing from you. So that's your 80%. As that older worker, you need to be there saying, this is where I want my career to go. I really want to stay engaged. There is a point, yes, that I want to pull back on work, but that's from a timing perspective. That's not from a knowledge share perspective. I still want to have that ability to share what I know with people, and I want to have that ability to learn something new, right? That maybe I'm going to move into my entrepreneurial half of my career. So that's probably the biggest thing, is just do it. For the people returning back to work for whatever the reasons may be, maybe now the children are grown and they're off to college, or they're out of college, or maybe that older parent that you were caretaking, you no longer need to do that, and you need something that keeps you occupied, keeps your mind fresh. Look into taking, like you were talking, classes. Look at picking up where you left off. Maybe you didn't get to finish that undergrad or that graduate degree. Figure out what do you need to do to finish it. Or if you're not looking to really get those credits, see if you could actually take some of those classes and monitor or proctor those classes. Do everything that you can to get back involved. And if your ego is not something that you're concerned about, then yeah, take on positions that may be not exactly in line with what you're doing or did in the past. Maybe it's what you want to be, that greeter, to be the part-time person within retail or at a hospital as a volunteer, so that you're making connections and seeing people and have a routine. Just continue to just get up and do it is really probably the biggest thing that I would say. And there are a great deal of resources out there, whether they come from the Society for Human Resource Management or they come from AARP. There's a lot of resources out there to get the older community back into the workforce, or lobbying to keep them in the workforce and seeing them as viable employees.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing, like, it's also like taking responsibility, like what can I do? And like go with your manager or whomever, go share your vision with them, so that they are not making any assumptions about what you do or not want to do. You just tell them, this is what I want, and see if it works out.
Have the conversation, make that plan, and then execute on that plan.
Yes. And then, the other part with, maybe taking the job that maybe you didn't want, but maybe below what your pay rate is. But also, I think gives you the opportunity, or gives the manager, whomever, the opportunity to see how you can contribute, right? If you show up to work and you contribute, and this is really the company who has, or the manager who has the ability to see your talent.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay. Awesome. Well, do you have any suggestions for, like, speaking of like the younger workforce?
Yeah.
Do you have any insights into, like, we know what are the challenges for the older workforce? Do you have any insights on what is the challenges for the younger workforce?
I'm starting to scratch that surface. I see the number of jobs is probably that's available pre-pandemic was a challenge, definitely a challenge. Also, the thoughts coming directly, the perspectives coming that I've seen in research of the younger workforce really not wanting to be locked into the same type of environment as their parents were, for example. So they want to be able to pick up multiple jobs, or they want to be the owners, right? So that entrepreneurial spirit is very, very much alive, and we need to encourage that. And you can see some companies are going in that direction, where they're like, though you may work for this big corporation, we want you to bring that entrepreneurial thinking and that thinking around the budget and how to do something differently and how to capture the market. We want you to bring that. Some individuals want to do that. They want that safety, so to speak, of a corporation and that freedom to be their own leader, to be their own boss. That's really what I'm seeing. One of the things I'm seeing right now. But what's funny to me is we think that's just for that younger generation, but really, I would say it expands the generational groups that are in the workforce today.
So it sounds like, wants flexibility actually on both ends, right?
Yeah.
Well, from what I'm saying, one flexibility,
exactly,
autonomy, want to contribute.
Yeah. I want to contribute. I want that flexibility. I don't want to be micromanaged. It's definitely something you see with the newer generation as well as the older group. So everybody wants to be treated with that respect. They want to be valued. They want to know that they're contributing something, and they want to be an adult, right? I'm an adult. I don't want to have to show you constantly that I'm an adult and tell you that I'm an adult. Just let me do what I do best. And then if this place isn't right for me, or this position isn't right for me, let's work together to find someplace else within this company that is right for me. Because I still believe in the company. And I hear that too. I hear that from people.
Yeah. And, just also like, it's just a relationship, right? Let's develop a relationship. Let's trust each other. Trust me, I can do my work.
Right.
And I want to contribute. I'm a good employee. Treat me with respect, and I will.
Right. I will do it. I will do it. And if I don't, we all will know. Right?
And we'll all know. Okay, awesome. So, before we complete, do you have any parting thoughts to share with the audience?
Oh gosh, there was one person that I interviewed. This individual just touched my heart in talking with the direction that their life went. They were not born, and my focus was in the U.S. employee group, right? But this person wasn't born in the U.S. but came to the U.S. and said, had I stayed where I was, I don't know that I'd have the opportunities that I have today. But now that I'm here and I'm part of that group that's over 40, I'm starting to feel like I'm back in my old country. And I said to this individual, well, what do you want people to know? She's like, just give us a chance, right? We have the knowledge, we have the skills, and we have the desire to learn even more. Just give us a chance. Don't make these assumptions. So I would say my parting words are very much like that. But on a bigger level, right? We need to give one another, regardless of age, regardless of gender, regardless of whatever demographic buckets we sit in, we need to give one another a chance, because the biggest bucket that we're in is the human bucket.
Yes. Thank you. That's so beautiful and really touched my heart.
Thank you.
Thank you. So if people want to find you, work with you, talk to you, how can they do that?
Absolutely. I'm more than willing. I'm in email all the time, so I absolutely accept emails. I'm at Dr. Leslye, Leslye. My mom was very specific about that, at the Org Psych Consultants.com. If anyone wants to reach out to me by phone, my work phone is always open. It's 214-250-7715. And I absolutely look forward to this summit and more of these summits. Maria, we're going to do more of these summits.
Sounds good. I'm in. Thank you, Leslye. Pay attention to spelling, yes, because I didn't. And we ended up going through this whole round of
That's okay.
because I kept on spelling Leslye wrong.
That's all right.
Okay, well, this has been so fun.
Thank you. Yeah.
Bringing your contribution and speaking to the older workforce.
Yeah.
I
absolutely enjoyed this, Maria. I love what you're doing. I can't wait to hear the other speakers. There's many topics that I'm like, oh yeah, I'm interested. Oh my God, that's so good. So I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm glad. I can't wait either. I'm watching them continuously. Yes, but yes, we're on with that. And I just want to say, I love how what I'm getting from the summit and from conversation with you, that how the idea of sustainability really expands to taking in consideration interest of everyone, right?
Yeah.
That's true sustainability. Our planet,
Yeah.
all the populations, that we're all
Right.
humans, we're all humans, period.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
we're all good, we all want to contribute. So yes, I'm so happy that your topic just kind of finished this little circle.
Yeah, right.
A spot in the circle.
Close that circle there.
Hello.
Fantastic.
Okay. Well, thank you, Leslye. And thank you everyone for watching and listening. We will see you later at Sustainable Work.
Yes.